I'd like to welcome everybody to the show. My name is Habis Prado with the Culture. For those that haven't tuned in, I am with my friend Stash, writer, author, journalist, uh,
Shit disturber.
shit disturber, restaurant owner. He has written this wonderful book called Israel, an American Catastrophe, written and sponsored by Stash. How do we say your name again? Last time,
Stash. Prusinski.
Brzezinski. So please, how can these folks find your book right now?
Oh, basically, you can buy it in my restaurant, but it's on sale in several bookshops in Warsaw.
Okay,
But I
what's up?
think the best restaurant is right in the middle of the city, so it's easy to find it.
Okay, and
And
for the
and we're open from early morning until late at night. So bookshops have limited opening hours, etc., etc. So
right.
there's no
So
problem.
also for those in America that really want to read this book and this book that we're talking about, guys can email me, and I would be happy to come down to Radio Cafe and get the book for you guys and mail it out to America. So I'm a little nervous because this is our first interview. We've been talking. I've met Stash 3 years ago when we were working together with helping out when the Ukrainian war started, which is another shitstorm,
Right.
right? But we're gonna be focusing on how close your book. I like to say it's a prediction because you wrote this book when
Well, it
Stash.
came out first uh, 9 years ago, and now it's a third edition. 9 years ago means 2000, 16,
16.
2016. Yeah.
2016, and the war we didn't see Hamas we didn't see Hamas to 2023 push into Israel October 7th, 2023, when this whole mess started with the Palestinians and Hamas pushing into Israel. Did you know that something was coming on the horizon
No,
with
of course, of
with what
course,
was going on
hardly,
with
you
BB and
know,
everything else?
apparently even Mossad didn't know, so I didn't know. But what do you expect? 75, now 76 years of bloody, ruthless, heartless, cruel occupation. What do you expect? The Israelis hoped that Palestinians would just go away or just die. And they didn't die, they would help them die with no problem. For 76 years, there has been no punishment for the Israelis for killing a Palestinian. It's absolutely incredible, and the world has accepted this. The world has practically, especially America, the administration, one after another, has practically applauded Israel's ruthless occupation, which has no practical parallel in history. We know something, Polacks. I call them Polacks. I don't like the word Paul, like see a telephone Paul, but
Right, right,
we
right.
Polacks had a 6 year occupation. After 5 years, we were so fed up. There was such frustration. That's hate directed at the occupiers, the Germans, that we had an uprising, two uprisings. One was the ghetto uprising. The Jews rose bravely after 4 years of occupation.
Mhm.
And they had enough after 4 years of occupation. And they rose. It was a completely uh, completely pointless in the sense they could not win. They could not win against the German Third Reich, but they could not sit there and do nothing,
Right.
and see their brothers and sisters and children being massacred in the gas. There was enough, and so that was after 4 years occupation. So imagine 75 years of occupation, very similar, except for the gas chambers, but absolutely, totally the same.
What you think goes through a mind of a Zionist, as far as when they know the atrocities that were done in Poland, they know about the atrocities that the Germans have done. What makes you think that they like what do you think goes through a Zionist like Bibi, where all the destruction and all the rubble, and they still see no
No,
fault
well,
in whatsoever.
Bibi is a war criminal. He was always a war criminal. Even Israelis who vote for him knows he's a crook. He would be in jail like Trump. In a normal society,
Yeah.
in a democracy that works properly, Trump and Bibi would be in jail years ago. But the power of the lobby in the states and the ignorance and the lackadaisical attitude of the American population, especially the ignorance, makes it possible for Trump not only to be in jail but to be president in the United States, in oldest democracy in the world. This is absolutely worse than disgrace. It is unbelievable. It's you should write if you wrote a novel and describe the situation. Nobody would believe it. After 250 years or so of
So,
democracy, anyway.
yeah,
Okay.
well, we'll get back to
Okay.
those pieces and parts. Seamus. JD Vance, our vice president, was just letting the European Union know a couple days ago that basically there's no the liberals that are in Europe have to accept. Why isn't the liberal factions accepting the fascist factions? And is there any more liberal left wing groups where there can rally here in Europe? Or what do you think the Democrats and the left wing groups in America? Where are these left wing radical groups at?
I think that so-called left wing in America hardly exists. It's America is the most unusual country in the world, in the was so-called prosperous, or what Bush, or I call him Shrub, G.W. Bush,
Yeah.
called it in civilized world. It's the only country where the education is a racket, where you have to pay up to $100,000 a year to get a decent education. That does not exist in any normal country. Health service is a racket. It's incredibly expensive, and I'm a Polak, I'm a Canadian and British, whatever, and I've been in hospitals twice in Poland, and I was delighted with the service,
Really?
and absolutely,
Okay.
and I can't complain. Of course, I don't have to worry about any bills. When an American friend of mine, Jim Haynes, very famous American in Paris,
Okay.
went some years ago
Hey, Jim.
to his wedding in New York. He forgot to take out private insurance. Getting off the plane, he had some heart problem, landed in hospital,
Wow.
missed his son's wedding, came back to Paris for missed my birthday party. I was staying with him. It doesn't
Okay.
matter. And a few days later, he had a bill for $50,000. This is absolutely crazy. Of course,
Wow.
didn't have enough money to pay, and he has died since. But this is completely outrageous, and I call it in my book. Maybe many Americans will not appreciate
Right.
my writing,
No,
but
no, I don't.
I called the United States a lobby land. But years ago, when I started writing this book, there were about 10 lobbyists, well paid, uh, for every politician on the Hill. I mean, this is crazy.
For the Congress.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
Lobbying Congress
And
for
senator, and
for
Senate.
craziest.
Yeah, for everything possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Being a Canadian and listening to Trump speak of being the 51st state,
Yeah, that's
how ludicrous do you think that is?
That is absolutely absurd. But he is
I'm sorry, I had to laugh.
President Trump is one of the least educated politicians I can imagine or see or have heard of. I mean, he said I get the New Yorker every week,
Yep.
and in a recent copy I read that when he was raving about getting rid of the immigrants, illegal immigrants,
Right.
and said the Haitians should go back to Venezuela. Can you imagine? I mean, this is just a comic.
Well,
the guy knows nothing. He's just, you know,
yeah, no, and him having Maduro, the president of Venezuela,
yeah,
also say that he's willing to help with Brazil liberate Puerto Rico, which is American territory,
yeah,
and Puerto Ricans don't need liberation from
right,
Venezuela.
yeah.
And Maduro should take care of his own people in Venezuela before he thinks of trying to liberate anybody else. Now, seeing Bibi and Trump recently in the last 2 weeks, Trump stating that Gaza should be made into the Riviera and that U.S. is going to take over Gaza Strip. What when you hear something like that, what goes through your mind?
Well, I always thought that Trump was completely uneducated.
Right.
So what to expect from a guy who knows nothing? For example,
Do you
he's
think it's a possibility that
Yeah.
they can actually move
no,
2 million
absolutely,
people?
absolutely, absolutely. You know, also he's not such a great businessman as he is. He projects the image of a great business. It's untrue. He ruined Atlantic City, which was a booming city, until Trump came in and messed it up. So how can you expect him to create something fantastic in Gaza when he couldn't create anything next door, where he has the same language, same people, etc. It's completely absurd. It's infantile,
Infantile.
and he behaved like a spoiled kid. And for example, can you imagine? He declared officially that he went to some private school, not a very good necessarily, but expensive school.
Right.
And he threatened
That dad put him in.
threatened to sue, take that school to court if they disclosed the marks he had at school. Which, who would even think about it? I had terrible marks at school. I'm very proud of that.
Oh,
I managed it.
are you?
Yeah, I'm very proud of it because most of my all my friends who had better marks.
Well,
in
I have
Polish
friends
high
that I still have friends that had bad marks and still were very successful people.
Absolutely,
You
absolutely.
know,
Has nothing
so
to
it
do
has
with
nothing to do with
marks. School marks are really very
It just
mostly unimportant.
it shows how intentioned he is to try to save this image of a powerful man and this what do you call it, these strongman dictator man.
Yeah. Well,
right?
basically, he's a born bully. He's trying to bully everybody.
What is stopping BB? Okay, so BB's wanted as for war crimes by the
Absolutely.
Hague.
Yeah.
He's also being charged with corruption
Oh,
in
absolutely.
Israel.
He's been in court over maybe 50 years already.
Who in Israel, and why is the left wing in Israel unable to cork
Because
that
there are
progress
many there are
BB?
many reasons, but basically left wing is, first of all, is weak, and secondly, it's relatively cowardly. I'm not saying there are some heroes in the Israeli world.
Okay.
There are wonderful journalists who really, really write the truth. But the Israelis, the vast majority, don't wish to know the truth.
Oh, wow.
I have in my restaurant, which is Club of Radio Free Europe, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my restaurant here on the shelf, and a group of Israelis came in not too long ago. They were delighted to find my restaurant because it's well known for good Polish food. But when they saw the book, they just ran away. I mean, don't want to see anything. They're blind. And what's incredible is that the Israelis, quite rightly, for decades, claimed that Holocaust was possible because so much of the world kept silent, didn't want to see, but the world, our world, Europe, if you were not silent during World War II, you risked your life. The East Jews don't risk their lives when they criticize Israel, criticize Netanyahu. They only risk some money, they risk losing some friends, but they don't risk anything else. But yet
Right.
they keep silent, and that is disgraceful, cowardly, and inhuman.
So right now we believe that the Israelis are spending a lot of money to keep guys like me silent, other cable companies that are not mainstream news to not speak about the atrocities that are going on. I want to get back. I want to talk about this book of yours
Okay.
where you have a first quote by McCann
Menachem Begin. Menachem Begin was a famous, infamous Jewish prime minister.
Prime Minister.
Okay.
He said we had to
He was
hate
born in Poland, by the way.
Polish guy.
Yeah, yeah. He was educated in Poland. Finished law school, I think, before he was taken to Siberia by the wonderful Soviets.
What stand out for you in this quote? We had to hate as many as any nation worth of the name must and always will hate. The rules of the foreigners. If you love your country, you cannot but hate those who seek to annex it.
So this is exactly what the Palestinians are doing. They hate their oppressors. They hate the people who execute them every day. They hate the people who cut them off from the water, from electricity, from food. It's absolutely. Imagine if the United States was a situation like Israel, and they could only buy their food from Saddam Hussein, not Saddam Hussein,
Right,
but
yeah.
Bin Laden. Or,
Right, right.
they are forced because Gaza is the biggest outdoor prison in the world, and they are forced to buy all goods practically from Israel. It's a sick situation.
Yeah, and no imports coming in from any other
Absolutely.
place at all.
Absolutely,
Which is
Israeli
kind of
control everything. It's a prison. It's a prison. They're normal.
yeah. Gaza is a big
Yeah.
looks like a compound prison.
Well,
when you look
now
at it.
now it's just a rubble. There's nothing there, and it was always from the big in the science, the Zionists, early Zionists. They always planned to get rid of the Palestinians, but they kept it silent and they didn't say it. But it was always their plan.
Right. Well, I believe also the Bengal. We talk about the Bengal Canal that they've been planning since the '60s to wanting to build, and the plans for the canals goes right through Gaza.
That I
Yeah.
know very little about. So
There's a project
yeah,
of a canal that they wanted to use, I guess, this next to the Suez,
yeah.
and this Bengal's Canal is another passageway
Right.
where they can get more imports.
Okay, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know nothing about it, so we're not
Yeah,
making
yeah,
comment.
right.
But,
So out of
but
these,
they think that they can do anything
okay,
with Palestinians and anything with the land on which Palestinians live, and that's always been the case,
right.
especially after '67. But
With your book, you start out when you were a young boy in the book, and what drove you with so much interest with what here it says you were at an orphanage at a young age.
yeah,
What got you into the orphanage? And like, I want to talk a little bit about your personal life as far as
okay.
I know you were sent off by your mother when the war started. Living in a great in a great farm. You said you
That's
loved it.
right. Actually, yeah, I was lucky. I survived the war. My mother had a terrible time.
Hmm.
My father was a famous writer, famous anti-fascist. He was immediately arrested when the Germans arrived. He escaped the same day, and we didn't see him for 6 years.
Wow.
He had a fantastic career in the West as a soldier, diplomat, and writer. Came back after the war, and he was very well received by the communists because the communists remembered that before the war, he urged the government, our government, he called our government a junta because it was dominated by the military, and he urged the government extremely strongly to legalize all parties, including Communist Party. So when he came back to Poland, most of his friends who spent the war years in the West didn't return, for obvious reasons. But my father came back because he had a wife and 3 children there, and he was welcomed by the communists who remembered that he urged the government to legalize the Communist Party.
Okay.
And he landed in New York, United Nations in '45.
In 45. Now, with you being a 14-year-old in an orphanage, since I grew up in an orphanage myself, so my experience in the orphanage was probably 100 times different from what your experience in the orphanage was. Since
I don't know.
I'm a little younger, I'm a little younger than you. But it states here, life of a spoiled diplomat's son in the West landed in a model communist orphanage in Poland. Lots of indoctrination, but shortage of Koloski
Kluski
noodles.
means
Noodles.
noodles. Yeah,
Yeah.
noodles. Yeah.
So,
We
can you
lived on.
elaborate on that a little
You
bit?
know, well, we lived on. You know, my father had a fantastic job with the United Nations. We lived in paradise. Then he became ambassador to Holland. It was paradise. Then he died in a car crash. And then my mother had no money, and I landed in an orphanage. And so, from this
Wow.
fantastic life, I had. I was in the orphanage where there were 55 of us in one room,
Whoa.
just 3 rows of beds, a bed, a stool, a bed, stool, etc. Only cold water, and that's life. That's life.
How
But
long did you have
oh,
to
thank God,
endure that?
I thank God I was just for 1 year because afterwards my father was insured and my uncle, who was very clever, bought in some products and sold it for a lot of money. So after 1 year, I lived, not like a king, but I had a room to myself in the Highlands. So I was a
Uh,
fantastic privilege. So it was only 1 year. It was a very good lesson. I
mhm.
don't regret how. I mean, it was horrible, but I don't regret having that life
That
experience.
time,
Yeah,
yeah, me neither.
and
I think
I
built
liked
built character.
everybody. I liked all my friends. I was always popular with my friends. I
You're
always,
popular now, as I can
yeah, I guess
see.
so. So I had no enemies. Yeah, okay, no
Well,
other.
you speaking of having, at some point in time, being that you're so outspoken about the Israelis, do you ever feel that you have a target on your back?
Not really, because I hope that I'm not important enough, but they will kill anybody. They have been killing opponents, especially Palestinian intellectuals all over the world for 75 years. That every Palestinian who was outstanding, an intellectual, so an enemy of somebody fought, tried to fight against oppression. Everyone had a target on his back,
Wow.
and dozens
Do
were
you think
executed.
Americans that speak about against the Americans that speak against the war right now at this time, Americans like me, there's other Americans like me that are against this war, and we are very vocal. And do you think, like, though you say your words are not, you don't think that you're important, but it did have a domino effect in the sense that it got to a person like me from New York and Brooklyn that is telling the world in America, hey, this book has a lot of substance to what is going on today, right now, and you guys still have to. Um, do you think Israel will have a way to still target those that are talking against not only Palestinian intellectuals but American intellectuals that see something that
But yeah,
wrong with this war?
basically starting from A to Z,
Yes,
any American who wants to be a elected official
yes, sir.
and is in any way critical of the Israel lobby, is has no chance in American politics. I don't know whether you know this, but in Tennessee, dog catchers are elected. That's funny,
Wow,
but
I didn't.
so I think that a dog catcher can be elected in Tennessee even if he doesn't like the Israelis or lobby. But anybody more important has no chance. No American can become a congressman, senator, if he is known to as a critic of Israel, not as a country, but as a empire, as a cruel uh, being, as a cruel enterprise, as
Right.
basic a gangster state, if you wish. That's
Right.
strong, but that
That no, it's true. Chapter 7 in your book speaks about manipulation in the media on both sides of the pond. Right
right, right.
now, stating, are you only referring to manipulation in mainstream media or those that are being lobbied by Israel?
I'm referring to
Is it because Is it because Israel is embedded in Fox? They have money
Oh, absolutely.
in
No, they,
CBS, NBC,
when you know,
CNN.
30, 40 years ago, when somebody said that Jews control the media, I wouldn't just ignore it. I would say they exaggerate. My best friend in Canada was Jewish. Don Bell, my wonderful friend who doesn't live in the world, he's a Jewish writer, but he was Jewish like I am a Catholic. You know, we never discussed Israel. My other friends were Jewish, but
How do they feel? What about
but
what you
we,
talking? Are you bringing
but
those
in
things?
those days we did. I'm talking about the 70s, 60s, 70s, where the Israel wasn't that such a top front page topic all the time. Since then, you know, it has become a major topic in the media, and basically, uh, they for example, Obama, when he was running for president first time, he came out with this short statement that nobody suffers more than the Palestinian people. There was such an uproar that he never mentioned Palestine again. And even when he was elected, already president, he hardly mentioned Palestine because if he was critical Israel, he would not be able to pass all kinds of bills that were good for the American people. You know, that's crazy.
That's nuts.
That's
Yeah.
it's
How do?
and
Yeah.
I believe that the shooting themselves in the foot is a very a
Mm.
weak expression. They they are asking for trouble. When a minority becomes so powerful, if eventually there's a reaction. In Germany, there was a reaction against the Jews, but nothing to do with the Holocaust. But they were not beloved. This is hearsay. I'm not saying this is true,
Okay.
but they in their years when the after World War I,
Yeah.
when the Germans were starving, the story is again I say it's story that the Jews, the rich Jews, uh, uh, just used that portrayed, but show their wealth by bringing the kids in wonderful limousine to school when people on the streets were starving. That's not the reason to say the Jews to Gashever,
Right.
but there is a reason not to love them. Okay,
Right.
and no, that's
What?
life.
How are American? Do you think America at this point is now are way in their DNA, in the American DNA? There's too much of the Israel and the Jewish compound in
Yes.
it. Is there any way to get away from Israel right now? That from America,
On
any
my,
way that where's the start of not only talking about this atrocities that they have committed since the 3 day war, 5 day war,
what do you copy
and
atrocities for 76
settlers,
years?
right? 76 years. So we couldn't start it yet because I feel like in the 76 years, America's just intertwined with them. There's a knot now that we can't that we cannot start. Where do you
Exactly.
start? You say where do you think the start of the knot would be for us to
Well,
relinquish our
as
ties?
I said on the back of my book on the cover, the American Jews should cut the ties with Israel before it's too late.
Okay.
This is written 9 years ago. There were no demonstrations at that time in favor of Palestine at the university, American universities. The Israeli lobby, the young Jews controlled the American. This nobody talks about, but a Palestinian could not address any university in America until recently because he would just not be allowed to enter a hall and to address the students. And they were vicious. They were vicious. I can go on and
And no,
on.
and I can tell you right now what's going on. And if we just saw yesterday or in the last week where uh, Elon Musk is going inside the Department of Education, and for those kids in the universities that are standing with standing with the Palestinian people, that they're being targeted right now, this week,
Yeah,
that the kids in the universities are getting their student fundings pulled out
right,
from the Department of
right,
Education.
exactly.
So it's what I think is the opposite of us getting ourselves tied we're getting more tied in into the Israeli agenda.
Yeah.
For the at least for the next 4 years, it looks like. Um, uh, is there any hope for the Palestinian people or for the
Yeah.
Americans as far as that want to
As
see
long
a Palestinian
as long
state?
that Trump is in the White House, there's no hope for the Palestinian people.
Wow.
He has no charity, has no understanding of the poor, whether it's Americans or Palestinians. He has no empathy. He's just that doesn't exist in his body, his mind. He's rich, and he's there for the rich. He's not there for America. Unfortunately, tragically, the Americans are bullshitted into believing that he will help them. He will not help them. He will not help the low, poor people and the
Income.
middle class. They just and what is shocking is he always treated women as merchandise.
Yes.
And I can't understand why one single woman in America will vote for him and millions vote for him. I can't understand how a black person or a
Biden
Haitian
and Biden's
would
we were
vote for him.
Biden was criticized for saying if you vote for Trump, you're not black. Which there was some truth.
Yeah,
There was some truth behind that, and
right.
you just heard stats almost say the same thing. You know, women, Latino men led, mostly Latino men like myself, voted the majority against our own interests, and I don't get that fact that we have these Latino men which are now being targeted by immigration and being sent back. Cuban Americans, they were very big in voting for Trump, and they're coming from a communist way of thinking as what they think, and siding with the right wing, and with Trump, they believe that
Yeah,
it's a liberation for them.
yeah, the problem is,
What is going
yeah,
on?
it really gets down to the very simple fact
What is
that
that?
Americans are not educated.
Wow.
That education is very expensive. I had a wonderful girlfriend. I mean, she was marvelous. I can mention her name, Mary Hill. She was from North Dakota, and she was a genius. She was very intelligent, very well read. But one day at Edinburgh University, she was talking in a group of people, and she says to me, "You Mediterranean people, you know." And of course, Paul is not on the Mediterranean, but I don't blame her because she was brilliant, but she had no notion of democracy and of geography, etc. But that's beside the point. But
Right.
basically, that is the problem. If you are educated, you can believe anything. You can believe demagogues,
If you're uneducated,
uneducated.
right?
You're a danger to yourself, and you're a danger to society. And when you have tens of millions of uneducated people, and who are willing to trust a demagogue because they don't know he's a demagogue, that's a disaster. That's extremely dangerous.
Very
It's more dangerous than wars. Of course, it's more dangerous.
Right. 'Cause
The Iraqi War and the Vietnam War, which were criminal, all the people.
well, this is what we
etc.
teach in the next generation underneath us, and my child's child is coming into a more watered down government, a watered down society that is just about capitalism and about capital greed and how much you can get and how fast you can get it and who do you hurt, right? Um, before we end this interview, from your book, what is the most if your when you were sitting there writing this book, what was your most important substance that you wanted to implement in the book and that you wanted people to take from this book?
I want to
The number one thing
basically
that
I
can change
wanted
hearts and minds.
I wanted to overthrow or destroy the notion that Israel is a friend of the of America. And the Americans have been paying billions of dollars every year to Israel. They have been supplying planes and arms, sometimes so-called second hand, which actually planes that flew 3 days, or that's it, and they got it for half price.
Right.
And the Israeli lobby, people of the Israeli lobby have been everywhere. Plenty of them in Pentagon. I write all this in the book.
Yeah.
Surrounded. Bush was an idiot.
Mhm.
No, he had nothing. When his father was, I wasn't a great fan of his father, but he was well educated.
Mhm.
When his father was in ambassador to China, China, the son went there. Do you think he went around looking for finding a girlfriend at his show or having good stuff? No, he went jogging on the Chinese wall. You know, this kind of. He was never interested in anything outside the United States. He was only interested in making money and profited from his father's name.
That's it.
So that's
And start another
and,
war.
and for example, the only one of the most decent and successful, in many ways successful presidents was Jimmy Carter.
Yes.
But he brought
God
peace.
rest his soul.
He put pressure on Israel. He forced Israel to get out of Egypt, of the
Lebanon
the desert, the
desert, right.
Sinai Desert, and
Okay.
so he was one of the most decent presidents, and he's one of probably the most hated one in Israel. And the one that's beloved is Trump. A nation that loves Trump, is there something wrong with that kind of nation? You know?
Right.
Very wrong.
Well, you guys heard it here, and those that are interested in what's going on, I like to say also is, we talk about people rallying, protesting. Don't be afraid to stop protesting, right? Do you think writing a letter to our congressmen and senators right now is a thing? Right, go out there, write your letters.
It's a
A
good,
letter
it's a good move, but basically, the lobby is so strong that Israel that 100% of American politicians will ignore anything, any advice, any criticism of Israel.
Right.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I ask many Americans, what is the greatest honor you can offer somebody in Washington? Somebody foreigner or an American, some distinguished person. What is the greatest? And it's not a medal.
I was gonna say a medal.
It's not. It's not a medal. It's
Okay.
not. It's not nothing material. And no American will be able to answer that question. You invite him to address the joint session of the Congress.
Wow.
Churchill was invited once. General George Marshall, wonderful person, was invited once. Uh, General MacArthur, maybe, but I
Okay.
can't remember. Uh, Wałęsa, the hero of the Czech resistance against communism,
Czech
was
Republic.
invited once. Our hero, Wałęsa, was invited once.
Okay.
Netanyahu was invited 4 times.
Wow.
4 times. And when he's already seen by most of the world as a war criminal,
Yes.
he was invited 4 times. He was embraced by Biden, etc., etc. And when he addressed this Congress and senators the third time, about 10 years ago,
Yep.
he ordered practically America to bomb Iran. I mean, after the Americans messed up Vietnam, messed up Iraq. Messed up is a very soft word,
Yes.
obviously.
Yeah.
And
Syria as well.
Do you think
Syria.
that 5 Americans out of 1 American out of 100 knows anything about Iran?
No.
Do they know that Iran is 4 times larger than Iraq? Do they know that the population of Iran is 3 times larger than that of Iraq? Do they know that the history of Iran is 2,500 years old? No. And,
A lot of Christian churches in
every
Iran.
single, when he addressed the Congress, the joint session of Congress, every single congressman, every single senator rose 29 times. There was 20.
clapped.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Yeah.
29. Not one had the guts to sit. Not one. This is incredible. Like
Mind control.
I
Mind control? You think it's like
well,
a mind?
but-
Whatever.
but, I don't know, it's not. It's just cowardice. It's just
Cowardness.
selfishness.
Selfishness.
It's short-sightedness. Lack of
lack of
sympathy,
empathy,
lack of love for your own countrymen, basically.
or lack
Uh,
for you just just
uh,
humans in general.
yeah, absolutely.
We
Yeah.
like to Stash, I'd like to thank you for giving me this time. It's an honor to sit down with
Don't
you.
exaggerate.
Well, listen, it really is. I um You met my friend Chris on Saturday, and he's like, having people like you around me, it just makes us more knowledgeable, a little bit smarter. I'm not that smart. I'm not as smart as you, but I hope to be in the next coming years, where I be able to write, which I'm in the process of writing my book and my story. And also, not only that, I will be heading to Gaza in the next few months, and I ask for prayer and everything, because you know how volatile even journalists, even volunteers that are there as far as humanitarian workers are being killed. Um, and it's just a
Yeah, they
ridiculous.
killed them with total impunity. They killed a young Polish kid, and it was a murder. It was pure murder. He's one of the 150 or 200 volunteers who were murdered by the Israeli army. And it was in the Polish newspapers reported recently
Right.
that they will refuse to offer one dime of compensation, just like the Israelis never offered a dime of compensation to the 750,000 Palestinians whom they drove out of the land in the 1948.
Right. Just to
Yeah,
catch you guys up on that, we're talking about the World's Kitchen volunteers,
that's
because
right.
World's Kitchen,
That's
he was
right.
a Polish. There was three humanitarian workers, plus I think two security
There,
guys that were
there
killed.
was there was seven killed,
Seven,
at
seven,
least seven at the
seven were
same
killed
time.
altogether.
But that was just one day. But there were
Right. That was just one day.
dozens of killed.
But the Polish man that comes, they did a funeral procession here in Warsaw for him, and the Jews, Israel did not offer any
No
compensation.
way.
They did not offer apologies to the families. No, there was no
No,
delegates here as well,
no way.
right?
No way.
Not
No
even
way.
delegates
No.
here to apologize for the mistake that they made of killing the humanitarian.
There was a mistake. It was
Well, it
on
was
purpose. It
deliberate.
was on purpose.
Definitely, they knew World's Kitchen was there.
They wanted to stop the food arriving in Gaza. It was simple as that.
Right.
They wanted to starve the Gaza people. That's it.
And it's
And,
worked. And it's worked right now. So what? We need to be. We need to get together. We need to rally. We need to be strength. Radical is what I say is we need radical spokesmen, radical leaders right now, because it seems like every leader that falls into that, once you start going into the politics, it seems like you have to change your narrative from working with the people to then working with the lobbyists, and especially with the Israel. And there needs to be a change in that. We talk term limits, and we discuss more of those things going on forward here at the culture. We like to thank Stash. He's running a restaurant here, and if you're ever, please, when you come to Poland, when you go down to Warsaw, stopping Radio Cafe is one of the best places to eat Polish food, to gain knowledge, to see history all on the walls here. And like I said, it is truly an honor to met Stash and to be called a friend. And I'm learning much more. And
Thank you very much.
I wanna thank
Thanks
him.
for
Thank you for this,
thanks for
Stash.
your
Really,
time.
really.
Thank
And
you.
before you go, Stash, I want to let you know this is called Israel, the American Catastrophe, Stash Brunziski.
Right, right.
So please go out and you need to read this book. I will be putting up pieces of it on my website and also on my show. Um, I'd like you guys to thank you for this, coming out and watching us and spending time with us at the culture. I will be seeing you guys tomorrow where we talk more about what's going on in our country, the lobbyist situation, and there's so much every day. It seems like there's news coming out that is
Yeah.
you can't even
unbelievable.
you can't even keep up with, right?
Yeah.
So let's see if we can do some good things and make what Stash what he wants to
Mm.
do a takeover. So maybe we can take over this dictatorships and do good things for the Palestinian people. please go out and find a family in Gaza and in Palestine and donate what you can. There's children starving. There's over 50,000 civilians dead right now as we speak, and there's civilians still
And
dying right now.
twice that number badly wounded.
Badly, twice that number. So we're talking about over 100,000 people that are affected. Homes are decimated. And as you know, as you can see, our president wants to think that we're going to kick 2 million people out of their homes. It's impossible. And us being Catholics, there's nothing against anything that just because we're not against, we're speaking up against hate, inequality.
Do widzenia.
We're speaking up against just atrocities on children's mothers and families and homes. And we'd like to thank you again. I'm Habas Prado with the culture. This is Stash. We're talking about this book, the Israeli and American catastrophe. Go out and get it, and come see me on my email. If you want a copy of it, I'll get it for you. Thank you very much, and we'll be seeing you guys soon. Take it easy. Do widzenia.